People who work in luxury industries. What is a complete rip-off that rich people happily pay for? One of the more interesting ones is having expensive replicas made of priceless jewelry in case of theft. My surrogate dad in Nassau County, Long Island, knows of people who spent thousands and thousands of dollars on costume dupes of their best jewelry so they can wear that out and leave the real stuff at home under lock and key. Imagine a set of costume jewelry worth more than your vehicle. That sort of thing. About 20 years ago, I worked at a store that sold the fabulous fakes. The women would spend a few thousand on new vacation jewels so they didn't have to worry about losing their real diamonds if they got robbed. If you make your product rare. We are very small olive oil producers, we have all the machines to completely produce the oils ourselves. We work very clean and organic in a way that goes beyond any certificates, so we won't fool anyone on this side. But, there is certain special oils, for example, the very early harvest, or oil from wild olive trees. We have some wealthy customers. If we tell them we only have 10 liters of wild olive oil left, they want to buy it all. Only to know that they have it and no one else. So we found ourselves lying sometimes about the amount of oil left. It makes certain rich people buy everything available just to have it. Exclusivity is a drug to the ultra wealthy. Honestly, the markup on wine at fine dining restaurants is insane. I worked as a hostess and watched people drop $300 on bottles we got wholesale for like $40 without even blinking. I work for a high-end plumbing company. We do some truly enormous new residential builds. The difference between regular and high-end plumbing is purely aesthetic. All our pipes are meticulously organized and ran with non-flexible materials. We essentially do satisfying cable management but for pipes. It looks nice and wealthy customers like nice-looking things. My dad was a building inspector in a very affluent town for about 20 years. I used to love to hear his stories about the crazy stuff people would put into their houses. I think my personal favorites were the built-in marble bathtub with custom brass fixtures for the homeowner's dog and the guy who bought 2 separate houses in town, on adjoining corner lots, so next to each other but with 2 different street addresses, one for his wife and kids, one for his mistress. He had an underground tunnel built between them so the neighbors didn't see him going to and from the mistress' house. I can't make this stuff up. Caskets and urns. I work in a fancier funeral home as support staff, not a director. We literally sell $80 urns imported from India for more than $600. A $2,000 casket goes for $8,000. Remember that you are allowed under federal law to bring your own urn or casket. Sometimes I feel like there is more financial flexing at funerals than at weddings. Perfect service is service you don't see but feel. I have been a high-end chauffeur for almost 30 years for the 1% of the 1%. Seamless and invisible, as much as possible. Anticipation, discretion and knowing the answer to all of the local questions. The guests assume you've been to the restaurant or venue before and know what you're doing, and you do. I've had to read the wiki on sports teams I know nothing about to anticipate the answers to questions the owners may ask me. Preparation. It pays and is an immensely satisfying job. It's that level of service that made the Ritz-Carlton famous. They let staff spend $2,000 per guest to make the experience better or resolve issues, without needing manager approval. I had a friend that worked at the one in our city while in college. So many little details. Local newspapers shipped in for frequent travelers from a specific country, dry cleaning taken out by the room cleaners, done and returned by the time the guest returned. The chef at the restaurant would make off-menu foods for kids all the time. Anticipation of needs combined with tactful execution of the job seems like a reasonable, and not overly materialistic way, to want to be pleased, in my opinion. I can understand why the ultra-wealthy flock to businesses that provide these services. I worked in luxury fashion. Not sure if this is relevant, but I've seen hundreds of thousands in actual cash spent on purses. I worked at Celine and was even offered a job in France at one point. We had an alligator purse that at the time was priced at $35,000, had 2 in stock. Sold one to a Saudi royal family member. They came in and shut the store down. We were all called to the floor. The Saudi family had a black truck deliver 2 gym bags full of American cash, hundreds of thousands. My store manager and her assistant were busy running bills through the counter. Family left spending nearly $250,000 on purses and jackets from Celine. The VIP lounge access in nightclubs, it's basically milking a person with low self-esteem. Call ahead weeks before you go, you can get a steep discount. I got a table and bottle service at a club on the top floor of a hotel in Vegas for $300. We had our own security guard, our own server, even our own go-go dancer. It was fucking awesome. I had a friend who used to constantly call clubs and tell them she was planning a bachelorette party. She did this for literally years. It was pretty amazing just how successful this was at getting us VIP access and free drinks. My billionaire real estate client was having me go back and forth with the selling realtor on a property over a $10,000 difference in what he wanted to pay on a multi-million-dollar vacant lot. He made a point of telling me he and his wife were sipping a $10,000 bottle of port while having me dick around over $10,000 on the property. Also the most unhappy client I've ever had. Rich and unhappy ain't no way to live. My uncle, who was not rich but admired the rich excessively, used to tell the story of J. Paul Getty sitting out in his limo for several hours to avoid paying the cover charge to enter an exclusive club during peak hours. It may be an apocryphal story because the cover charge kept increasing every time he told it, but no matter what my uncle said it cost every time I pointed out, it was nothing to someone who was the richest man in the world at that time. And no matter how many times I pointed this out, that someone trading hours of the little life he had left, Getty was in his early 80s at the time, to save a few bucks he would never miss was crazy, my uncle kept insisting this was rational behavior. Less common but the most vile scam I've seen. I worked for a restaurant that wanted to be on a higher income shelf, in the middle of a white men in finance and Gillets district. Very popular business breakfast spot. They had a huge oven near the expo and you could see freshly baking sourdough bread. The oven was not actually baking, it was set on something like 40 degrees Celsius so the bread was kept nicely warm but definitely not freshly baked. We didn't even bake it on site, it was delivered in the morning and put in the oven, as a display. If someone ordered bread and olives or charcuterie board from the menu, we would make a whole event of getting that bread out, slicing, arranging and serving. You would then expect any other order that had bread in there to get this bread. Yeah, no. Any order, like things containing toast, full English, avocado toasts, etc., had generic Warburtons used. Front of house staff had to deal with complaints about it left, right and center. I lasted 3 weeks, the restaurant about a year more after I left. I once DJ'd in a casino in Macau. The VIP tables would competitively send bottles of champagne to each other's tables just to signal their wealth. It would be announced over the public address system, but nobody would get the champagne. The bottles never actually existed. It would be like, Table 10 sends 5 bottles of champagne to Table 4, Table 4 is sending 15 bottles of champagne to Table 10, Table 10 is sending 30 bottles of champagne to Table 4, etc., etc. This kept on going until they were up to like 200 bottles of champagne. They weren't friends or anything, they were just showing their wealth off to this other table. They got a few symbolic bottles with indoor fireworks taken to the table by girls, but that's it. I asked the owner what it was about and he said they can pick them up on another day if they want, but nobody ever does, it's purely for show. Insane. I have heard of this being a money laundering method, where the club takes a cut when the overpriced, non-existent gift bottles are bought back from the clients. Private nurse to very wealthy people. Sounds like a necessity, medical support, but most of the clients aren't sick. Just rich and able to do it. They like the attention. I've seen so much. Private jets, chauffeurs who sit outside in cars for days on end going nowhere. I watched a 90-year-old woman slather La Mer on her arms last week. It broke me. The amount of waste is staggering. Your industry is legit crazy sometimes. Oh yes, of course you need to be flown from Qatar to Germany on a specialized medical transport private jet just to have your lip filler removed by some German secret celebrity doctor. Sure, rent out an entire floor of the 5-star hotel so you don't need to see people while your face is swollen. I work with those flying ambulance jets a lot, this story is absolutely not uncommon. Equipped to do super important intercontinental rescue missions and high-risk patient transfers, actually get used to carry mildly unwell people to well-paid specialty doctors. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable for the most part. As you get older and, usually, make more money in your career, your view of luxury often shifts from things to comfort or convenience. You also start to realize how true the time is money phrase is. Yeah, I could spend a couple of hours doing XYZ, but paying someone to do it gives me 2 hours of leisure. Yes, there's an overlap between things and comfort, like when I had a job that required me to stand on my feet all day, a pair of $200 shoes was worth it. My ankles and knees weren't killing me, and they lasted longer. When you bust your ass for most of the year, being taken care of for a few days is worth a lot of money. Or spending a lot on something that makes your daily existence not as painful is worth it. Room service, you'd be surprised with how many people accept paying fees on top of poor quality food in smaller proportions just so they don't have to walk down and pick it up. Edit, holy crap, did not expect this to blow up. It definitely comes down to what kind of hotel you order from. You will likely get different experiences ordering room service at a hotel that has a 3-star Michelin restaurant compared to a casino or smaller hotel. The casino I work at is a 4-diamond resort, and even at its peak, I found the room service lacking. It was often bland, small portions, and poor quality. We would get constant complaints. The hotel still offers room service, but it's not 24 hours and won't tell you they have trouble finding servers, so it's not uncommon to never have a runner, which means guests will have to order to go and pick up themselves anyway. Ironically enough, this has never made the resort lose a diamond, even though that's a part of the score. We even have a 24 cafe restaurant, and we have gotten used to transferring guests to them so they can tell them sorry, no room service due to no runners. Private jet pilot here. Catering services. There's companies that, for a lack of a better word, cater specifically to the corporate jet world to provide food for the aircraft that is delivered to the fixed base operators for the departure. This is stuff like Asian salads for like $150 or a club sandwich for $80. These are rough estimates based on what our dispatch has told me. I've never personally ordered them. Many of our Part 91 owner flights, the aircraft owners are watching their expenses closely, and as such don't order these because it's a ridiculous waste of money to get Panera quality food for $150 when they could just ask us pilots to pick up Panera for them on the way to the aircraft. The people who don't realize this or care and will often run up over $1,000 for a handful of salads and sandwiches are those who charter the aircraft and get shafted by these companies or their broker. Former line guy here. When catering was ordered, we just call a restaurant down the street or run to Subway. Mark it up 200% and call it a day. Some of the fractional, flight options and EJM guys would call Gate Gourmet and Romulus and then see what we were sending out on a Kalita or Hoppajet 135 and would routinely compliment our prep over what they were getting. But yeah, charter catering is way overpriced. Also, jets. When flying less than 750 miles, I used to always convince my regulars onto a King Air versus a Lear or Citation. I'd show them the price difference for an hour and they'd book it. I worked at a number of private Forbes 5-star resorts and Michelin-starred restaurants. Honestly, the most expensive property was in a remote location in Colorado. They were happy to break even. There was typically more staff than guests. Food was flown in daily, we didn't have a kitchen budget, and every dinner was a new menu. We never repeated dishes for the same guests. They really did get value out of the $20K plus that they would spend. The most rare thing was for these people to have friends who genuinely liked them for who they were. The staff was hired based on their friendliness and encouraged to build relationships with the clientele. Almost every single one would leave crying because they felt like a normal person again. Wealth will get you a lot of things, but real friends are the true luxury. Would this be near Aspen or Telluride? Grew up in Colorado and explored most of the state. Those two places always made me feel I was too poor to breathe the air there. No, it's near the Colorado-Wyoming border. Steamboat Springs was the closest town. Property management here. Pool heat. There are some people out there who do not travel anywhere without a heated pool. I live in the panhandle of Florida. For about 8 months out of the year it feels like 100+ degrees here. Some of these people are paying thousands of dollars to heat a pool, where the heater almost never turns on. During the summer, it might turn on for an hour at like 3 a.m., but it would immediately heat back up before they used it. I used to work at a Persian rug store owned by a very wealthy Iranian family. They would have me color in stains on $5,000+ rugs with magic markers. I worked in 3 different rug shops when I was much younger, and it was an experience. The first company I worked for taught me a lot. I later went on vacation to a well-known ski town and my girlfriend and I stopped in a rug shop. Looked around the shop and I was commenting about a couple of different carpets. The owner asked me, "You know carpets?" I told him yes, and he inquired about my previous boss. A couple minutes later he was on the phone with my old boss chatting away. Offered me a job on the spot. He later told me, "Yeah, we all know each other." This was crazy to me, but still a fun memory. I moved to that state a month later and took the job. Lots of fun. People spend ridiculous amounts of money on rugs, especially old ones. I helped repair several using dies that were hand ground and each knot was individually dyed. One I worked on sold for $250,000. Just obscene. I worked in a couple of high-end luxury hotels you've definitely heard of in a major American city, and honestly, you really did get what you pay for. White glove service, excellent anticipation of needs, top quality ingredients. Detailed dossiers on guests that enabled us to give them each a really special, personalized experience. Remember the starred restaurant? Yes, I drank the Kool-Aid scene from The Bear? Exactly that. Because it was real luxury. Real luxury isn't about being shiny or expensive or premium, it's about anticipating the guest's needs and having it ready for them before they even know they need it. It's about going the extra mile, and making accommodations. To be honest, those were my favorite workplaces, and country clubs, but for similar reasons. The detailed high level of service offered. Edited to add, y'all got me going down memory lane now over here. I chefed at the Waldorf Astoria just before it closed for renovation. In the banquet kitchen, they had a banner over the entryway saying, "The difficult right now, the impossible in a little while." Let me tell you, the lifetime servers and butlers there embodied dignity and class. These were men who spent 50 years serving in positions of respect in the city's finest hotels, at a time when that really meant something. We'll never have it again. I remember one of my cooks getting pissy about a substitution a guest wanted once, and he said, "Why don't they just tell them no?" I remember responding, "No? No? This is the Waldorf goddamn Astoria. We make dreams come true. You want to say no? You take that shit down the street to the DoubleTree." Sounds silly, I know, but a big portion of our restaurant guests were literally Ma and Pa Kettle on a bus tour from Iowa, who had spent their entire lives saving up for a trip to the big city, pre-Feeks. A friend of mine works on a luxury train, and this is very similar to what he says. He's either serving billionaires and celebrities or people who have saved up their entire lives for their trip. He's got 65, maybe 85, required service steps for every guest every morning, and passes the information along as needed. So if the guest in room 6 mentions that they woke up with a sore neck when he's asking how they slept as he pours their coffee, they'll find a pillow menu in their room later that day so they can choose a new pillow for that night. Hospitality at the highest level is about care and attention to detail. Sure, the people who are used to it don't really notice it happening, but the people who saved up for that trip? They notice it all, they feel special, and they get the trip of their lives because everybody helping them feels responsible for giving them the experience they dreamt of.